So the Ultra League remix is a big pain for a lot of reasons. A lot of people hate it because primarily full of XL Pokemon, and then just a lot of starters to get involved in. I tried playing a couple different rounds. I tested a lot of different teams inside the XL League or the Ultra Remix League, and I had a lot of failure. I think I dropped as low as the 2300s. But I eventually found a team that was kind of working for me. This lineup consists of Shadow Machamp, Excadrill, as well as Greedent in the back. Instead of the normal ABB team that I run, I focus more on having a double close and a safe slot that can just soak damage. This way I have coverage as well as shield pressure. It leaves with Shadow Machamp because of how much pressure the counter damage is as well as the cross chop damage is. In addition to that, its idea is to basically bait out a ghost type and catch it with your Greedent if possible. If Machamp can't put the pressure down, Excadrill will definitely take his place and be able to put pressure on anything else that comes out. In this first matchup, I go against the Gallade, which is a terrible matchup for Shadow Machamp, so I switch right away into my Excadrill. My Excadrill is actually able to farm a lot of energy against the Gallade, which makes it possible for me to have a lot of power to throw drill runs against this Giratina. I actually don't know why they switched so late or why they switched at all. I probably would have kept in the Gallade against the Excadrill. Now we have ourselves a position where this Giratina has to block or give a switch. With both shields down on Giratina, I'm actually in an incredibly good position because Green can come out here and literally just farm as much energy as it wants because the Giratina does absolutely no damage to my Greedent. You'll see here, Ominous Wind does literally almost no damage to my Pokemon, which is fine. Shadow Ball wouldn't have done much more either. Now, I do have to recognize the close combat damage that can come from Glade because if my Greedent goes out, then my Machamp really can't close out the game. That being said, these body slams will still chunk this Glade. With the second body slam, I can switch into my Machamp and literally counter it down with only taking one confusion. I do this because I want Machamp to be ahead in energy just in case there's a big threat in the back. When I see the Giratina come back out, I'm a little concerned about it, but I don't think that I need to actually save the health on my Machamp here. I probably should have gone for the Rock Slide, but I really felt that my Shadow Machamp could probably cross chop it down. But I was wrong. At the end of the day, my opponent's running double Ghosts, so there's not a lot he can really do against this Greedent. He really had a team that could just ignore the Machamp at the end of the day. At this point, I could probably flex on them, but with the Sludge Bomb, I might as well block just in case I miscount something. And it just has to be only a Shadow Punch, something I'm really not worried about. Either way, I'm going to crunch here and then go ahead and finish off the Giratina. And there goes game 1. A big reason why I came in with this team was because I noticed with the couple teams that I was using, I kept going to time really often, and I didn't want it to happen anymore. In game 2, I get another rough matchup, so I switch directly into my Excadrill again for my safe swap. Out comes Scrafty, so I'm not really feeling great because I have a double counter on my hands again. At this point, I'm going to ignore the charge moves because they're going to power punches and it's going to farm me down. That being said, I have some play here where I can basically put some shield pressure on by running double drill run. The second drill run is actually really important because if he doesn't block this, I can actually knock him out and make him lose switch. Being ahead on shields is actually super important for the Pidgeot matchup afterward. Once again, I'm ignoring charge moves from the Scrafty because it has no real effect on me. So now we're going to farm it down with Machamp and have some energy to throw at the Pidgeot coming out. Now the Pidgeot is obligated to block this potential Rock Slide because it can literally knock out in almost one hit. Now I want to point out, in that specific exchange, I did one counter first and then I did the cross chop because I wanted to catch the gust damage on my Greedent. So I was super surprised my opponent didn't use Brave Bird there because it would have been more effective than just Brave Bird and dip. That being said, if they want to Feather Dance, that's okay with me. At this point, my job is to wait out that clock and then bring my Machamp back in and then punch down this Umbreon. Because of how long a lot of these battles took, my phone actually overheats a lot. It was kind of super annoying. The clock is just about finished. After this foul play, I should have maybe one more body slam and then I can switch into my Machamp. I could have maybe waited it out a little longer, but I felt that it was probably time to switch. Right now my Greedent has a lot of energy, and I finally cleared the debuff from Feather Dance. Unfortunately, I have to block this foul play, but now we're in a position where we can rock slide the Pidgeot and pretty much take it out almost. With Pidgeot down, my biggest concern is finally gone, and I'm going to do the best I can to just pressure this Umbreon. The Umbreon is forced to throw because it can't really afford to take another cross chop from a Machamp. I come back with Green, which pretty much has almost 2 full body slams, and I'm just going to start throwing these out as fast as I can. At this rate, I'll outpace the Umbreon and I can easily win the game. And there's game 2. I will admit it was nicer in the lower elos because in the lower elos I was able to get games much faster. Instead of taking like 10 minutes, it would take about 30 seconds to about 2 minutes. Game 3, I get another really rough matchup, so I switch directly into my Drillbur again, and I see another Scrafty. At this point, I'm considering changing my lineup, but I'm going to stick with what I have for the rest of the set. I'm not going to lie though, this double counter is getting really frustrating. We're going to stick to the same strategy of using double drill run and hoping we get a shield over here. But this time, because I couldn't sneak in a mud shot earlier, I actually cannot knock it out with this drill run. My Machamp is now going to counter it down, which still doesn't leave me in the best position because I still have to deal with the upcoming Skarmory. My only saving grace is that Machamp can actually do a lot of counter damage and a lot of neutral damage to the Skarmory. Additionally, air slashes don't do as much as gust damage does. Here we're going to see the first cross chop, and it does about a quarter of Skarmory's health. It responds with the Sky Attack, and I have to block this because it will literally one hit my Machamp. Now I don't actually have a lot of play over here, but I'm going to bring in my Greedent and hope that I can really win this out by putting body slam pressure in. My opponent brings out Glycer, which to me I'm thinking at least that's kind of a neutral matchup, but it's still not great for me. In retrospect, I think that my opponent probably should have brought in the Glysaur versus my Machamp. This would be because Glysaur actually resists pretty much everything that my Machamp can throw at it. Now, my opponent has enough for Earthquake, but I'm still not going to block it because of how tanky my Greedent is. The good news in this specific situation is that I can really put pressure on with Body Slams because at a certain point it will no longer be able to ignore it. Similarly, Umbreon can do actually the same thing because it works virtually the same with Foul Play. My opponent brings back Skarmory, which I'm thinking to myself, I would rather have my Machamp go against Skarmory than go against the Glysaur because at least it can do some damage. Glysaur comes back up, but I know it can counter it down, so I'm going to go ahead and block this and win the game with just some counter damage. It gets the attack, but that's okay because there goes game 3. And that's the thing about Shadow Machamp. Even though the damage is resisted, it still does so much damage because of how powerful counter is. In game 4, hallelujah, I finally get a good lead, but he responds with a Venusaur. The thing about Venusaur is it is actually really good against most of my team. I have to block it with all my Pokemon. In my head, I'm thinking if whether or not I should switch or should I have stayed in. So what I did was I stockpiled a Cross Chop, and then I let my Greedent just take some damage from the Venusaur so I don't have to worry about it as much. What I'm hoping for here is to get maybe a shield or 2 from the Venusaur with my Greedent, and to soak up all the heavy damage that it would do. The reason why this might work is because Greedent can actually outpace the Venusaur so rapidly with Body Slam versus the Frenzy Plant. I'm basically getting 4 Body Slams for every 3 Frenzy Plants. Even though the Body Slams aren't doing a ton of damage, it has to block this or lose the switch. Additionally, the Frenzy Plant isn't in a really good position to take out any of my Pokemon. Now my opponent catches a Body Slam with its Galvantula, which is actually fine. At this point, I have a pretty hard double counter against my opponent. I'm okay with letting one lunge get through because it's not going to kill me, and I basically want to have 2 charge moves ready to go so that I can either A, CMP tie against the Venusaur coming out, or B, put a ton of shield pressure on the Stun Fist that was in the lead. Now I'm actually going to blind throw my Drill Run. It doesn't matter what comes out because both of them will take a ton of damage from this Drill Run. Unfortunately, they were able to sneak in one fast one, but that's okay because I still outpaced them to a second Drill Run, and even then I could put a lot of pressure on them either way by just mud-shotting here. Now my opponent has to throw an Earthquake here, or they will lose. If I reach another Drill Run, there's no way they can win. My Machamp can just now come in, do a couple of counters, and then cross chop, and then come out with a second cross chop for the Venusaur. But I see that my opponent instant switches into the Venusaur. To make sure the Venusaur cannot Frenzy Plant me, I throw a cross chop right away to knock it out. Now I can finish off the Stunfisk for game 4. So my phone was overheating beyond reason at this point. I actually put my phone into the freezer between games over here just to kind of cool it down a little faster. Now I'm not saying you should do that. I did that because I wanted to finish my set sooner. After bringing the core temperature down on my phone a little bit, I continued on to my game and found my next match as soon as I could. In game 4 I go against Mandibuzz, and it's actually not the worst matchup. It's not a great matchup in that it can basically outpace me to Aerial Aces, but if I can bait out a shield for Rock Slide and then catch a Rock Slide, it actually is a really easy matchup. I'm going to try to do that right now, and my opponent's basically not going to care about this Crouch Chop, unfortunately for me. So it doesn't block this thing. At this point, I'm going to then try to go for a Rock Slide. In retrospect, I should have just gone for another Cross Chop because I really can't ignore a Cross Chop either at this point. After failing with the Machamp, I bring in my Excadrill, and the reason is because I don't want to do any more shields against this Mandibuzz. So this opponent of mine is so clutch, is able to catch a Rock Slide onto a Stunfisk. As cool as that was, this is actually fine because Excadrill still wins the one shield match against the Stunfisk. Now, I'm not afraid of Earthquake here because I know that my Machamp can come in afterward and then go ahead and farm it down. Ends up my opponent baits with the Rock Slide, which I'm really not worried about even a little bit. So I farm out some extra energy and throw right before my opponent gets to Earthquake. This is important because I want to have extra energy for the returning Mandibuzz or whatever may come out. My opponent throws right away, which is fine with me because I know that Foul Play won't knock out Excadrill at this health. They now have to decide whether or not they're going to throw an attack before I throw my attack. If I didn't have that energy from earlier, it could have farmed extra energy so that it can have more energy against my Machamp. At this point, I can shield this arrows and then counter down. My opponent knows this, so they're going to switch into Nidoqueen right away. I'm going to throw a Cross Chop as fast as I can, just do some basic chip damage. I'm then going to switch down over to my Greedent, which is designed to just soak as much damage as possible. The job of Greedent at this point is to just do as much chip damage as possible with those body slams. If I can get it low enough, I can then utilize Machamp to go ahead and finish the job with counters. These body slams might not do much per hit, but they do add up. And they're literally coming out constantly at this point. So we're finally in that position where we can counter down the Nidoqueen. It has to block this body slam or it will get knocked out. This Nidoqueen is now in the position where it has to throw energy or will get knocked out by another body slam. The worst part for them is that they have to go for Earth Power here, because if they don't, I will get another body slam in time. My opponent returns with Mandibuzz, which is fine with me, because I'm going to outpace it to a Cross Chop and then I can still counter down the Nidoqueen. And there goes game 5 for a 5-0 set. My biggest takeaway here is that Excadrill was a really good safe swap for this team because of that drill run pressure. Additionally, the counter damage from Shadow Machamp was just so oppressive that it basically makes your opponent to respond to things that they really doesn't want to. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like and subscribe. And if there's a Pokemon that you want to see inside the Ultra League, let me know in the comments and I'll do what I can to make it happen. Thanks for watching, and I hope you all enjoy the video.